another video, and today I want to talk to you about handstand, specifically how we can get stronger in our handstand and how that translates over to a better handstand and working towards more advanced moves like the press, handstand push-up, etc. This is kind of building on the theme that's been developing this year so far in many videos, which is how strength is the foundation, it's the underlying thing that provides us the ability to do many different moves, whether that's higher level moves, whether that's just to move better, or really provide us a lot of health and function for day-to-day living. Can't go wrong with getting strong. You can't out technique being weak. Ultimately, strength makes everything easier. And in particular, when it comes to handstand, strength isn't necessarily something that's always communicated that importantly. People just often focus on let's balance the handstand, which is an important part. But again, strength is that foundation. So I want to give you today 3 exercises, including some variations, which is going to be great if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, to get stronger with your handstand. And not only that, but how to implement it. Knowing is nice, doing is better. Let's jump straight into it. So when we're talking about building strength in handstand, predominantly we're going to be looking at building up the strength in our traps. Now the traps, both the upper and lower traps, they're going to be essentially the glutes of the upper body when we're in handstand. Getting these strong is going to make your handstand life much easier. When it comes to an actual straight handstand, there isn't too much of a strength requirement when we're in a nice straight line because the force is predominantly acting down. That's how gravity generally works. The loading is going to be placed primarily on the skeleton and those joints stacked on top of each other. Where strength is required is when we start to move out of this center position and out of that nice stack shape. This was going to happen whenever you actually want to kick up into handstand. There's going to be an element of strength required to catch that position. If you're falling out of handstand, there's going to be an element required to catch and prevent that fall happening. And if you want to learn more advanced stuff like shapes, one-arm handstand, pressed handstand, that's going to need some strength. So when it comes to training strength for handstand, we need to think about one important thing. We have to be in positions where we need to resist the closing of the shoulders. Going back to that example of where we talked about force acting down in handstand, here we're trying to resist a force acting slightly forwards. We're having to actively keep the shoulders open by strengthening the traps. A basic example of how we do this is with a prone shoulder flexion lift. If we're lying face down on the floor, 2 hands on a stick, we try to lift that stick up. This is the effort, the intent that we're trying to do with the traps to strengthen them. This stick drill is great for developing understanding about how to contract this position and developing flexibility. But when we train strength in handstand, we can also develop all of these things, including improving our shoulder mobility. So let's get stuck into it. Let's talk about exercise number 1, which is the pike stand. Probably something that you've seen before. And really, this is a fantastic drill, certainly at those beginner levels. If you're particularly afraid or uncertain when it comes to getting upside down, this is a fantastic drill to get you onto your hands, get you loading your shoulders, let you loading your wrists, but in a way that is safe and scalable and probably not going to feel too daunting. It's also actually a harder position to hold than holding a straight handstand itself, simply for the fact that we go back to you're having to resist the shoulders moving forward as opposed to having that nice stacked position. So the intent here should be trying to push the shoulders backwards and pull the hips over the hands. There's often going to be a mobility restriction here. Most people just aren't flexible enough at either the shoulders or the hamstrings to get into a really solid position here, myself included. But if you make that intention, you're going to make gains. Just holding this position for something like 10 to 30 seconds is a great way of building up capacity here, but we can also try rocking into this position where we shift the shoulders forward, try to pull the hips over, load the shoulders, feel the strength requirement, hold for a few seconds, 3 to 5 seconds, and then shift back and repeat that for reps, much like anything else that we do. The lower you go with the feet with this exercise, the harder it becomes because more load is ultimately going to be placed through the hands, through the shoulders, and the angle is going to be more extreme, so harder to contract in. I would recommend starting with feet at roughly hip height when you're in that pike position, building up time. You can lower if you want to. If you're at the point of this movement feeling a little bit safe, a little bit easy, you can do a chest to wall handstand. You're probably going to want to move on to exercise number 2, which is the tuck handstand. Now there's a great saying that goes around down under from the Perth crew, and that is tuck so you don't suck. Very simply, if you want to get good at handstands, you need to get a good tuck handstand. Partly because it provides this base level of strength and conditioning, strength in those traps that is so fundamental to future work. So as I said, getting into this, we're probably going to want a chest to wall handstand. We're going to use the wall to help us. And really this involves pushing up, keeping a good shoulder position, and trying to pull the thighs down. As soon as you begin to pull the thighs down a bit, you're going to feel the load increase on the shoulders. Ultimately, your tuck handstand doesn't need to look like a full tuck handstand. Anywhere between straight and tuck is a spectrum of tuck. The intensity increases the further we tuck down. Now, if you want some full details on the tuck handstand, I would highly recommend checking out my tuck handstand tutorial breakdown, in which I talk about the kind of different variations, a little bit more detail about why the tuck is useful. Just watch that. There's much more info in there. Start on the wall. Just add some sets at the end of each of your training sessions. Much like the Pike Stand, we can work on holding it for 10 to 30 seconds, or we can perform it for reps, sliding up and down the wall. And eventually, as we get better, as our freestanding gets better, we can work on doing both holds and then reps in a freestanding position. The third exercise is the press to handstand. Now, this often is a skill that people are after, but ultimately is a strengthening move in handstand. It's kind of like doing handstands for reps. The reason I place this last is that it kind of makes sense to go through these exercises in order. If I was training somebody, I'd want somebody to get a good pike handstand whilst they're beginning to get their grasp of handstand. Then, as they go a little bit more confident of handstands, I'd want them to develop a good tuck handstand. And then finally, maybe we're doing some good freestanding stuff. Let's start working on the press. The press is a cool entry, it's a cool move that a lot of people like to do, but I don't think you're really ready to start working on it unless you have those two prior steps. So just something to consider. Again, I have tutorials on the press to handstand, so if you're interested in this particularly, I would recommend checking those out. But a couple of notable favorites that I would maybe add here. Number one, at the more beginner level, is wall press negatives. This is actually very much akin to those tuck handstands on the wall that I mentioned about previously, although we're just going to take that range of motion and increase it. We're going to make it more extreme because we're going to lower the legs through a fuller range of motion. The effort, again, like the pike stand, is to push the shoulders back under the hips, back towards the wall. We're fighting to maintain that shoulder flexion. You then keep lowering the feet, using the toes on the wall to take a little bit of weight off and make it a little bit easier. Grind, grind, grind as low as you can go before you then fall onto the floor. Preferably onto the feet, not the face. If this one feels heavy, you probably just need to do some more tuck handstand and then gradually build up and work towards it. The two other variations that I particularly like are press walks. Now, we have this in a little bit more of a basic progression that I would recommend people starting on, much the same as the pike stand to begin with. We're just going to sit in a pike position, palms on the floor. You're going to rock forward, you're going to push up through the shoulders, shift onto the toes, load the shoulders, try to hold that position, 3 to 5 seconds, shift back. This is a press to handstand rock. This is the first stage of a walk. A great way, again, of loading the shoulders, loading the traps. But as we talked about in that pike stand, the lower the feet get, the harder this becomes. Obviously, the feet are now on the floor. This exercise is going to be significantly harder. If you're stronger, you can begin to try and lift the feet in this position to do a walking motion, either forwards or backwards. Backwards is harder, forwards is easier. Where essentially we're trying to do the same thing. We're shifting that weight forward until we can't anymore. We try to lift the feet. We walk a little bit forward. We rinse and repeat this for reps. That's very simply the 3 exercises that I would recommend if you want to get stronger in your handstands. You've probably seen these before. And again, for good measure, these are the exercises that work. These aren't just novelty variations for the sake of variations. We like things that work. Things that work make our life easier to do the fun stuff, the fancy stuff. If you're going to implement this, here is what I would recommend you give a go at. Because strength needs to be trained less frequently than skills, this is the sort of thing that doesn't need to be in every single handstand session. I would recommend having this sort of work at least twice per week, sometimes a little bit more, but start off with less, see how you get on, and then build it up from there. Adding just 2 to 4 sets of these movements at the end of your handstand training, 2 to 3, maybe 4 times a week, will have a significant impact and improvement on your ability to be stronger in handstand and your handstand progress. Pick a variation that is relevant to you. You're either going to try and hold it for 10 to 30 seconds, or you're going to perform it for reps, something like 2 to 6 repetitions. Especially adding in those pauses, 3 to 5 second pauses, is what I like here. That being said, there is a nuance to handstands. If you do want to hand with that nuance, then there's always 2 options for you. Number 1 is my app Tribe. There's loads of routines in there, from handstand strength and flexibility. There is in particular 10 handstand levels taking you from nothing to working on shapes. There is a soon to becoming press to handstand program in there. Or for those of you who want a little bit of more one-to-one help, there is my coaching platform, BSF Coaching, in which you can work with myself, Erdi and Ulrich, on developing your handstand strength or flexibility. We'd love to help you out. Links to those are in the description down below. Other than that, I really hope this video helped you out. If you're not working strength yet and you're training handstands, it's something that you need to be doing. Just pick something from this video. The details are all there. You just need to start doing. Remember, Knowing is nice, doing is better. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Right next to it is also that thumbs up button if you want to support the channel, show that you enjoy these sort of videos. And right next to that is the subscribe button if you want to join the Bodyweight Warrior tribe and don't miss out any more future videos. But other than that, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a strong week and